Welcome back, dear student. And what we are doing here is I'm going to describe or explain this code in a simplistic way. So the code we have in front of us is the one that we are going to use for data acquisition and displaying the data. So we use this code to acquire the data and to display the data. As you can see, we have a code which is written in C++ language. And this simple code, the way it works, it has two main parts. So you have void setup part, and you have these brackets. Code goes within that bracket, and also you have void loop and these brackets. The code goes within those brackets. You see, we start with int ldr read. So we are basically telling our program that ldr read is where we will be storing our data, or is where we'll be capturing the readings of an LDR. So if it's voltage that is being read, or the intensity of light, we'll be capturing that using LDR read. That's why we declare it here. So we are just telling it, this is the way for it to know that, okay, the LDR read is actually where we will be storing. It's actually a variable where we'll be putting the value that comes from LDR, the value that is read from the LDR. But at the same time, it's declared as integer, meaning that we'll be reading an integer value. So as I mentioned, there are two parts. There's void setup and void loop. Basically, what void setup does is like we are telling the devices to be ready. We are telling, by using void setup, we tell the devices that be ready, now communication is coming. It's like knocking the door. But within, void setup can tell them, or can tell the equipment that be ready. Again, there's something that we do, serial.begin. We use this. This is called baud rate, 19200. This is called baud rate. So serial.begin is the code that we use to basically just tell about the speed that we are going to use for our communication. You will see how this is important next. So this is the speed that we are going to use in our communication. We have to tell it to know the speed that we are going to use. And pin mode is basically we are telling, remember our connection of blue cable was going to A0. So A0 is where we are reading what comes from LDR. So we are going to read from A0, and we are going to take that value and store it in LDR read. But remember that now we are telling it that pin mode is basically we are setting the pin. We are informing the system that read from A0. So A0 is our input. So our input which comes from LDR is sent to A0. So we are telling it that A0 is actually where our input is. And when we go to void loop, the void loop code will run over and over and over and over and over, as long as our program is still working and we are still interested in continuing and computer is still on. It will continue running over and over and over and over. So you see here, LDR read, what is now stored in LDR read? What do we store there? What we store there is we use analog read to read the value of analog signal which is in the pin A0. And then after reading it, we have to print this in our serial monitor because we want to be able to see the readings on the screen. So we use serial.print to read the value. Remember, we used serial.begin to just tell it that this is our speed, but we use serial.print line to basically read the value that we have, or the value that we get from A0 on the screen. And each time we read it, we have to apply a delay of 1 second between the first reading and the second reading. So we put a delay so that it could actually read slowly so that we can be able to see the value that it's reading. So basically, this is in a simplistic way what the code does. Of course, we will have a lot of discussions about these codes in the other episodes where we explain them well for you to understand. But simply, this is how this code works. Thank you for listening.